You think modern food is weird? Try rat soup, whale vomit ice cream, or pig nipples on a stick? I'm not kidding. These were once actual meals, loved by real people. From fried sparrows eaten whole to sewing different animals together just to see what happens, this is the most cursed menu in human history. Some of these were luxury delicacies, others nightmare fuel, and the worst part? Some of them are still eaten today. Brace yourself, this is gonna get nasty. Let's start light. Rat soup, Paris, 1800s. Meat was scarce, so rats became the solution. It was sold on street corners, boiled into broth, bones and all. Some even believed it was medicinal. In China, rat meat was thought to provide warmth and was eaten during cold winters. Though it was a food of necessity, some developed a taste for it, and it became a delicacy in times of desperation. Even today, in some regions, rat dishes still exist, often cooked with heavy spices to mask the gamey taste. Then there's eel pie, Victorian London's version of fast food. Eels were everywhere in the Thames, so they got baked into pies and drowned in a weird green sauce. The sauce, known as liquor, was a mix of parsley, flour, and water, giving it a distinctive color and flavor. Eels were incredibly cheap and readily available, making them the go-to protein for the working class. Even Charles Dickens wrote about the popularity of eel pie, showcasing how deeply ingrained it was in London's food culture. And then there's garum, the original fermented nightmare. The Romans took fish intestines, left them in the sun for weeks, and called it a sauce. Entire factories were dedicated to producing buckets of rotting fish goo. It was a staple in Roman cuisine, used to add a deep umami taste to almost every dish. Some batches were so prized, they were sold at prices comparable to fine wine today. The stink from garum factories was so powerful that they were often built far away from residential areas, yet the elite couldn't get enough of it. But let's take it up a notch. Calf's foot jelly. Boil a cow's foot. Extract the gelatin. Turn it into a jiggly dessert. It was considered a health food, thought to strengthen bones and improve digestion. Victorian families believed it had healing properties and served it to the sick, much like modern chicken soup. The wobble alone made it unsettling, but for centuries, it was regarded as the ultimate cure-all. Beef tea, literally hot water with beef drippings. Supposedly medicinal, definitely depressing. Hospitals in the 19th century used it as a nutritional drink for weak patients, believing it to be a miracle cure for all kinds of ailments, from colds to tuberculosis. It was essentially a primitive form of modern-day bone broth, but with none of the seasoning or taste we enjoy today. Next we have bog butter. In ancient Ireland and Scotland, people buried butter in peat bogs for centuries and then ate it. Some of these butter lumps, found perfectly preserved, are over 2,000 years old. The bog's cool, oxygen-free environment acted as a natural fridge, and the butter developed a strong cheese-like aroma. Imagine spreading something on your bread that had been sitting underground since the time of the Druids. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, let's talk about Perpetual stew, a cauldron of soup that never stopped cooking. Some were kept boiling for years, even decades. They just kept adding new ingredients. Monasteries and inns during medieval times often had a pot going at all times, meaning you could be eating a stew with flavors from ingredients added months ago. Imagine dipping your spoon into a broth that had ingredients from 5 years back. Think of it as history in a bowl. Just don't think too hard about what's floating in it. Think the wealthy ate better. Think again. Cockatrice, a medieval Frankenstein dish where they'd sew a piglet to a rooster and roast it for fun. It wasn't about flavor. It was a status symbol, a way to flex your wealth by serving a monstrosity at dinner. The idea was to impress guests with something both grotesque and extravagant, a literal feast for the eyes as much as the stomach. Ambergris ice cream. That sounds fancy until you realize ambergris is literally whale vomit. It aged for years inside a whale's digestive system, hardened, and was used to flavor desserts. The substance, prized for its musky aroma, was also used in perfume, making it one of the most luxurious and bizarre ingredients in history. Then there's lamprey pie, a jawless, blood-sucking fish, so loved by royalty that King Henry I literally ate himself to death on it. These eels were boiled in wine and spices before being baked into pies. The dish was so revered that even Queen Elizabeth II was gifted a lamprey pie for her coronation. And if you were a Roman emperor, your snack of choice, flamingo tongue, because regular meat wasn't pretentious enough. Flamingos were seen as exotic creatures, and their tongues were considered a rare delicacy reserved for the upper class who could afford such extravagance. Then there's swan meat. In medieval England, swans were legally only for royalty. Commoners caught eating swan, punishable by law. It was a game meat that symbolized wealth and status, often served at grand feasts decorated with its own feathers for extra dramatic effect. Moving on to the Arctic, let's talk about survival foods. There's something called muktuk, whale blubber, frozen, eaten raw. If you grew up in the Arctic, this was your power snack, rich in nutrients, chewy as rubber. Then there's beaver tail, roasted by Canadian trappers because it was pure fat and calories, aka survival gold, and on to elephant trunk stew. Yep, in 19th century Africa, elephant meat was on the menu. Even the trunk. Seal brain soup. Arctic communities used every part of the seal. Yep, even its brain. Then we have puffin hearts. In Iceland, puffins were caught and their hearts were eaten raw. A delicacy, if you could stomach it. And roast hedgehog? Romani travelers wrapped them in clay, roasted them and peeled off the spines. The ultimate bushcraft meal. Jellied moose nose. Boil a moose's nose, slice it, and let it turn into gelatin. This dish was particularly popular among indigenous and frontier communities in North America, where using every part of the animal was essential for survival. The nose, rich in collagen, was considered a delicacy due to its soft, almost jelly-like texture when properly prepared. Often served cold, it was sometimes accompanied by vinegar or mustard to enhance the flavor. And what about otter meat? Medieval Europe classified otters as fish, so they could be eaten during Lent. And how about this? Oyster ice cream. 19th century America blended oysters into ice cream. This bizarre combination emerged during a time when sweet and savory pairings were experimented with in high-end culinary circles. The briny, salty oysters were thought to add a unique depth of flavor to the rich, creamy dessert. Civet cat stew, a dish where civet cats were stewed in spicy broth. Popular in parts of colonial-era Asia and Africa, civet cats were hunted for both their meat and their musk, which was used in perfumes. The meat itself was gamey and required slow cooking with strong spices like cloves, cinnamon, and chili to make it palatable. Some believed civet cat meat had medicinal properties, including boosting vitality and improving digestion. How about, wait for it, pig's nipples on a stick, served at food festivals, grilled to perfection. A novelty item at extreme food events, this dish consists of pig nipples skewered and charred over an open flame, though it shocks most Western audiences. In some cultures, consuming every part of the animal is a sign of respect and resourcefulness. And if you thought that was weird, how about stallion semen shots? Yes, real thing. Served at festivals for health benefits. This bizarre drink gained popularity in certain rural festivals, particularly in New Zealand, where it was promoted as a protein-packed energy booster. Some believe it enhances strength and stamina, leading to its nickname, nature's energy drink. Often served chilled or mixed with fruit juice. It remains one of the more extreme food challenges for daring festival goers. And finally, pig pizzle, a dish made from pig penis consumed in certain cultures for its unique texture. Found in parts of China and Southeast Asia, pig pizzle is often dried and used in soups or stir-fries. It is sometimes regarded as an aphrodisiac and is believed to boost vitality. Now the real question is, how far would you go? Would you actually try any of these? Or are you sticking with your boring, safe meals? Drop a comment below and let us know, because some of these foods, they're still being served today.